At Bentham Financial, we believe that sharing another person's story is a privilege. The people inspiring and activating others, role modeling what's possible, solving problems today, and building for a better tomorrow. Who is relevant is subjective, but what if we turn the dial? Leaning into the courageous leaders who quietly drive positive change. This is Relevant, where leaders, creators, and change makers share the ideas shaping business, culture, and the world, one conversation at a time. Hi, Miles.
Nice to see you.
I love your home. I'm so excited to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you. So Toronto is now officially your home?
Toronto is now officially my home.
And tell me why it was your choice.
Well, it's where I grew up. It's where a number of our businesses evolved from. I have our 4 daughters, and I now have a grandson. So we didn't want to be away, and we have a place up in Muskoka. So this was the logical place to come back to. We still keep our places in Florida, and I guess that's about it, other than Muskoka. And it's where my heart is and my head is happy to be. And most importantly, that's where Kelly's happy place.
That's where a family is.
Yes.
So this looks like this was a giant passion project. It's stunning. But let's also talk about, this is not far. And you mentioned from where you grew up. So
No.
You were Forest Hill, born and bred.
Yes. I grew up on a street called Shalmar Boulevard. We were renters of an apartment, 900 square feet, 2-bedroom, bathroom apartment. My mother was a rental agent. And because of that, we got a 20-year lease at $120 a month, which in and of itself was a challenge. But Forest Hill was always a place that I was proud to call home. And this was a place, actually, it's a funny story how it came about. Kelly and I were on a boat trip in Alaska in the Inner Passage, and I had called Steve Pustel, who's been my best friend for about 40 years. And I said, "What are you up to?" And he said, "I just bought a condo." And I said, "What do you mean you bought a condo? We speak 1 to 3 times a day." He said, "No, we've been looking around." I said, "Where'd you buy?" He said, "At 1 Forest Hill." I said, "What unit?" He said, 503. I said, "Well, why don't you try and buy me 603? And he said, "Well, no, that's taken." I said, "What about 403? "Well, it doesn't have a balcony." I said, "Are there any penthouses?" And that started the journey. And so we bought both penthouses and put them together. And it's been I guess we've been in for 2.5 years. But we started about 6 years
I was
ago.
going to ask, how long did that development take?
About 6 years, because it was really a shell that we started with. And it was nice to have a blank canvas. And we used Brian Gluckstein, and he and his team were fantastic. And Kelly and I are thrilled with the results.
And does it feel a little bit like you're back to where everything started, that you've got a little familiarity to your Forest Hill roots?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in very humble beginnings. So the objective, I'm 68 years of age. When we started on this journey, I was about 60. And I said, I want a place that when I open the door, I'm like, wow, all of these sacrifices and efforts and commitments that I've made over the years is worthwhile. And every time I come in, I look out and I say, I'm very blessed.
You are. So let's talk about what it was like in your upbringing, Miles. So you talk about your humble beginnings, and you really developed an incredible legacy that started with photography.
So when I say we came from very humble beginnings, I mean, my parents' combined income was $10,000 in its best year. And I grew up in an affluent neighborhood, as I said, because my parents, my mother worked for Cadillac Development, and she was best friends with Helen Berman. And that was Joe Berman's wife. And that's how we got that apartment. But when I grew up around very affluent people. So I had, 2 things I'd say. I probably had a chip on my shoulder, 1. And 2, I decided that I wanted to have a better life for my family economically. And I was prepared to do whatever it took in terms of working hard. And I always had a pretty creative mind. It manifested itself first in photography. Mm-hmm. I took pictures of kids at summer camps and at Camp Whitepine. And I, from that hobby hub, developed my business. And then I became a commercial photographer, and we did sports and other kinds of photography, and that led to marketing. And that marketing led to the formation of MDC Partners. And we went public on Friday, October the 16th of 87, the day before Black Monday. So as Friedrich Nietzsche said, that which does not kill me makes me stronger. And we got to a business that had about $2.5 billion of enterprise value over the course of 35 years. And it was the 6th largest firm in the world. And then I retired from that and I branched out into other aspects of our family office. And there's a great quote that I remember in the Globe and Mail. I always say I'm a professional plagiarizer. I'm not capable of original thought, but this was one that resonated with me for many, many years. It said, the young aspiring business student meets a successful businessman and he asks him, how'd you become so successful? The older gentleman looks at me and said, well, I jump up my opportunities. And the young guy says, yes, but there's so many opportunities in the world. How do you know which one to jump at? The older gentleman looks at me and says, I don't, I just keep jumping. So for 46 and a half years full-time, 58 years part-time, I've been jumping.
So thinking about MDC, which was in New York, and that was really when you started to get your feet wet with meeting partners and meeting people. And you and I have always talked about how you invest in people. So what did you learn in that journey? Because you've then taken that on to Peerage Capital of knowing the organizations and the people that you want to work with. What do you see as the formula, or what has resonated with you that this is it?
So let's go back to the beginning. The beginning of the evolution of MDC started at 466 Bathurst Street, Bathurst and College. It was, a very, very modest facility. I did the work because I couldn't afford to. Over time, we then morphed to 939 Eglinton, and then we went to 45 Hazelton. And we were there for a long time. But it became very apparent that the opportunity for MDC Partners was in America, that the marketplace was not 10 times bigger, it was 50 times bigger. And so that's when we sort of morphed our business activities. So 80% of our businesses were in the United States at that point. That's where most of our mind and matter was. We were public on NASDAQ. And over the course of the years, I have about 25,358 contacts on my phone. I've always been in the perpetual pursuit of large amounts of high-octane capital. And America was the place to find it. Mm-hmm. And we've continued on that journey. And what's enabled us to build Peerage Capital and our various platforms of self-storage and asset management, mortgages, real estate services, all of those activities has really been our access to U.S. capital for the most part, although the Canadian banks have been exceedingly supportive.
So when you talk about high-octane capital and American support, what is the difference that you've noticed there between Canadians and Americans with the preparedness to invest?
Well, first of all, the pools of capital that they have are just so large. You know, we just partnered with an alternative asset management firm that's got about $50 billion of equity capital, $220 billion of assets under management. Their commitment is to help us with mortgages, and they will fund up to $1 billion a year. Wow. That doesn't happen in Canada. We partnered with Angela Gordon and TPG and Compass to refinance our real estate brokerage business in the States, Sotheby's International Realty. And, you know, TPG is a $400 billion asset-based business. What we have found as a unique opportunity is to find opportunities that are hidden in plain sight, local in many markets, but Canada particularly, and bring Wall Street capital. There's not a lot of people looking at Canada. I mean, Canada is, 1 or 2% of the global GDP. So It's not the first place that people look to. But if you can provide wonderful opportunities with high rates of return on a stable, predictable basis over a long term. If it was an incredible opportunity anywhere in the world, there are many people. There's Brookfield, and there's Blackstone, and there's Apollo, and there's Ares, and there's Carlyle, and there's KKR, and there's all of these firms, Blue Owl, going there, and that makes the competitive environment such that the returns are less. The nice thing about Canada is there's not as much competition. You asked me a question about our philosophy about being the place where great talent lives, about our philosophy that our unique selling proposition, wheat and durable competitive advantage, is about the power of the perpetual partnership. We believe that management teams should be both financially and emotionally invested, and we think in a partnership formula, you end up optimizing the outcome. You also empower people to be more independent, and for Peerage, having so many platforms and being so diverse, we need to have very invested partners. And culturally, it's what distinguishes us from other firms when we're in conversation about something. And I think the investors like our approach as well, because it's a little bit unique. And there's no shortage of talented firms. There's a shortage of opportunity to bring both financial capital and human capital together to create value over a long period of time.
Miles, one of the wonderful qualities that I think that you bring to all of your partners is actually the word partners. You never treat anybody as though you are the owner of their organization. One of my favorite stories, of course, is that you didn't even step in the halls of Chestnut Park for how many, 14 years?
I just went for the first time 19 years.
Yeah.
Never went there, which was a joke because they always would invite me. And I said, I have so much confidence in management. Why would I have to go visit? So we would always go for coffee or for lunch or dinner. And then they filmed me for decanting real estate. Mm-hmm. And so they have a bottle of wine, they talk about real estate, but they invited me. And as you know, I don't drink. So I said, well, I have an idea. Why don't we bring Diet Coke and Coke Zero and we'll do a taste test to see if I can distinguish the
Great
difference.
idea.
And they said, well, do you think you can? And I said, well, if I can't, there's a problem. In fact, on Saturday night, I went to a restaurant and they said, I said, I would like my Diet Coke. I get it in their big red wine glass with ice. And they gave it to me and I said, this is not Diet Coke. They said, no, it is, sir. I said, I apologize. I promise you it's Coke Zero. And of course it was Coke Zero. So,
has Coke called you yet? I think you'd be great for them.
So I from time to, I actually drink Diet Coke caffeine free. And if they're running low in stores, I have to call Kenny Tannenbaum.
You're kidding me.
And I get them to run a special run of Diet Coke caffeine free on the line.
I love that.
But look, I believe people work with those people they like, admire, respect, and trust. Mm-hmm. And I sort of think in life, it's not, Brad Pitt said it's not about the journey, it's not the destination, it's the company you keep. And I believe that. So to me, how one deals with the people in the organization, not just the partners, but everybody in the organization, I try to embrace as a partner because they are part of the mission of the 8,000 or 10,000 people we have in the Peerage family. I think that I try to, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So I say, well, we should treat our partners the way we want our partners to treat us. And that's where my principles of partnership sort of evolved. Partner with only people you like, admire, respect, and trust. Partner only with people you're prepared to have breakfast, lunch, or dinner with a second time. Partner only with people you're prepared to have a long weekend in a small cabin, small boat, small ranch, or small RV. Partner only with people you're prepared to make the executor of your estate. Partner with people that are kind to animals, very important quality. Partner only with people that have the human compassion gene. If you don't want to give time, talent, or treasure the benefit of others, you're usually selfish. Partner only with people who understand arithmetic. If you can't count, you can't meet time-bound and measurable objectives. You have no business to be in business. Only partner with people, this is a very important one, that understand God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth in proportion for a reason. So get people that really are good listeners. I tell my children, nobody ever learned anything from talking. And only partner with people that understand who luck. That a lot of our success in life is not because we're that smart or that driven or that disciplined. It's we're just lucky to be in the right place at the right time. And it's a lot of the people we meet along the journey who've mentored us, supported us, and embraced us and helped us through difficult times. And so I think there's an element of humility that's also really critical. And so it evolved from 6 principles of partnership to now 12. But it takes me about a minute or less to say, is this somebody who I think has the cultural fit and chemistry that we would be good partners together? And then the competency part is a given, right? You want to be partners with people that are bright, intelligent, insightful, have good judgment, etc.
So you have said to me in the past, I'd like to think I'm right more often than I'm wrong. And tell me an example about that in your journey of business.
Well, Ted, I don't know all these statistics, but I remember a few. So in 1941, there was a baseball player named Ted Williams, and he batted .403 in his best year. That means he struck out 597 times. That was the most successful baseball player in the history of baseball in a single season. So what I always say is you want to be more right than wrong. You want to be very right early, and you want to be very wrong in a modest way. But no batter bats 1,000. And if you're always right, you're probably either not truthful or B, you're not doing a lot. There is risk. It's called risk and reward for a reason. What's most important is the thesis of where you think an opportunity is and the execution of how you capitalize on it. But look, there's also black swans in life. No one anticipated the 2001 financial crisis. No one anticipated the stock market crash in 1987. Nobody anticipated that residential real estate would go through 3, maybe it'll be 4 or 5 years where they've had a 30% decline from where it was at the peak. So in general, you have to position yourself to be able to live long enough. Steve Fustel always says, you just got to be able to live through these things. And the reality of life is, most of the time, if you make the right plans and you have, most of the time, if you have the right plans, you have good capital available to you, and you have good talent, and you have the patience to see yourself through, you will ultimately succeed. We've always said that success in business is a marathon, not a sprint. There's a great story of Jeff Bezos interviewing Warren Buffett. And he said, Mr. Buffett, you have the most successful track record of investing of anybody in the world. You have a 23% track record of compounding money for 50 years. Your strategy doesn't seem to be that complicated. Why don't more people follow you? And he said, that's simple. Most people don't want to get rich slowly.
So, Miles, there are things within our DNA that make us unique to what we are. Other things are skill set that we can learn or have experience with. You have a team of people around you who are very bright, and you've picked what I would think you consider some of the best. But you are unique in that fabric for your appetite for risk. And as you would say, reward sits on the other part. When do you think you became aware of the fact that you were willing to step up to the table and start to gamble for a bigger future?
Well, I'd say a couple of things. I think my appetite for ambition is greater than the average person. There was a quote I read recently that says, entrepreneurs have confidence to the point of delirium. And I think I'm that guy. So when we are going through challenging times, we are trying to take on big initiatives. I can see on the faces of my A team, and they're all great. They look at me like I'm from Pluto. Like, how are we really going to be able to accomplish this? And I always say one step at a time. It's like eating an elephant, one bite at a time. So I think my ambition to create a large enterprise was twofold. I didn't ever want a job, because I always say, I have no education, I've never had a job, I'm fundamentally unemployable, and I don't plan to start soon. I wanted to always dare to dream, which has been my philosophy in life, because I believe that if you can dream it, you can make it happen. And I don't see risks the same way other people do. Now, risk is a relative thing, not an absolute. Some initiative that you might take, it won't be risky for you based upon your skills and your resources and your team around you, and then it might be risky for me, or vice versa. So what we try to do now, that change from the evolution, don't forget this is 46 and a half years in the making, is we do what Trevor Monner says, let's do the work. So we do the empirical analysis, do the research to figure out what's the opportunity, what are the risks and rewards, what's the competitive landscape, and are we suited to capitalize on this opportunity? And but you still need entrepreneurial instincts. There has to be someone who says, I know it may sound crazy, but we're going to own the check printing industry in Canada. I know it may sound crazy, but we're going to build a $35 billion money management business. I know it may sound crazy, but we're going to be in the top 10 largest real estate brokerage firms in North America. I know it sounds crazy, but we're going to be one of the 3 or 4 largest self-storage operators in the country. I know it sounds crazy, whatever. Okay. And so, Steve Jobs has that great ad, right? The Apple ad, which he says, here's to the crazy ones, and he said the people who are crazy enough to believe in the opportunity are the ones who change the world. So Elon Musk is crazy, but he's a genius, and look what he's done. Steve Jobs. I mean, now there's so many more people that are crazy with changing the world. 2008, Scott Pelley interviews Elon Musk on 60 Minutes, and he said, Elon, you have $30 million to your name. You have to fund SpaceX and Tesla. Keep in mind that SpaceX is going to go public at between $1.5 trillion and $2 trillion, which is 5,000 times as much as the $30 million he had at the time in 2008. He said, did you ever think of quitting because you had insufficient funds to fund these two businesses? And he said, no, I'd have to be dead or incapacitated. Most entrepreneurs have an irrational commitment and dedication to the Most entrepreneurs have a commitment and dedication to the mission that is irrational, and that most people would say, give it up, go on, admit defeat. But most entrepreneurs I know, they're not in the admit defeat business. They're in the, I'll figure it out how to get it done.
Miles, we were speaking about legacy and impact to the world, and I know that's been such an important part of things that you have built and supported. Let's talk about your contributions in philanthropy. They are in Israel, they're here in Toronto, they've been in the States. What inspired you to give back?
Well, I learned about philanthropy when I was a child. When I was 8 years old, I got subsidized to go to summer camp at the Bloor Jewish Community Center. And that's why we renamed it the Miles Nadal JCC, because I thought if I could give back, I would. I believe in a quote that Forrest Whitcraft said, 100 years from now, no one will ever remember the car you drove, the house you lived in, or for that matter, how much money you had in your bank account, but the world may be a different place if you've made a difference in the life of a young person. I think I've learned a lot from many great philanthropists around the world, and it's a privilege to give. It's not an obligation. It's a privilege. my kids always said, Dad, you're so generous. Why do you do that? And I said, because your father's selfish. He said, what do you mean you're selfish? I said, it feels so good to help others that I just keep doing it more and more. I think the unique thing about me is I was generous when I was broke. I was generous when I had no means. I always believed that I could give time, talent, treasure, or my network to help other people. And then I guess when I turned 60, and in the Jewish faith, they say you should live for 120 years. So I said, I will be celebrating my first of two 60th birthdays. I said, what do you want your legacy to be? And I had run into a guy named Mark Teixeira, who was the first baseman for the New York Yankees. And I said, what do you want your legacy to be? He said, great family man, good community man. Oh, and by the way, he played baseball. And he was a Hall of Fame baseball player. So I thought to myself, I would like to be your average, everyday, run-of-the-mill superstar. Because that was a thing that Johnny Rogers said. And I said, but superstar, not in my accomplishments, superstar in my commitment to help others less fortunate. And so, we've done many things in Canada. We've done them in Malawi. We've done them in the United States. We've done a ton in Israel, and I'm doing more and more on an ongoing basis. And I find that it is very fulfilling. And then the new two things that I've taken on, which I think are really great legacy philanthropic initiatives. One is, I told you I grew up with humble means, and we lived in an apartment, 900 square feet, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. And it bothered me. I had a chip on my shoulder, like, how can everybody's got a house? How could we not have a house, a small house? And we were renting. And so about 6 years ago, Trevor Monder brought me this opportunity called Ourboro. Mm-hmm. And the idea was that Canadians, there are 2.7 million Canadians who want to buy their first home and they don't have the down payment. In this country, or probably anywhere, if you don't have the bank of mom and dad, it's very hard to buy your first home. The average Canadian is 42 years old when they buy their first home. So we have, I put up $25 million of my own money. We've raised another $25 million, and the goal is to help and the goal is to create 10,000 Canadians to create $10 billion of equity value. We're trying to raise the next $250 million. And I'm doing all mine from my charitable foundation. And we've had the support from Bank of Nova Scotia, from the Labor Union of Canada, from CMHC, and from other private investors. And we've already helped 275 families who would never have owned a home. So if we can help 10,000 Canadians create $10 billion of equity value, that would be a fun thing to do.
Yes.
And the other thing is, I believe that what Larry Kudlow said, that capitalism is the greatest path to prosperity. In order for Canada to reach its potential, I think we need more entrepreneurs. So I want to create a school of entrepreneurship, especially helping underprivileged kids be entrepreneurs, and to do what my friend Ken Langone did at the NYU Langone Medical Center, which is create a foundation where they will have free tuition. So if I can do those two things for my legacy, that'd be good. And the other goal I said was I'd like to give away $180 million in my lifetime, and I'm about a third of the way there. And so why do I do that? Because consumption is not filling your soul. Mm-hmm. I always tell people I'm the most overindulged person I know. More things doesn't change your happiness. Helping others that are less fortunate fills your soul. Using your entrepreneurial instincts and your resources and contacts to make something happen, like the Boys and Girls Regent Park, Boys and Girls Center that Kelly and I did. That was really amazing, like a great feeling. To help with the cardiac center is fantastic. Helping with the JCC is fantastic. But doing things at the grassroots level, like what Kelly's done with Heart.
Yes.
Right? Helping about the elimination of human trafficking of women is a great initiative. And so we're also trying to find smaller initiatives that are grassroots, that aren't on the front page of a newspaper, but need to get dealt with. And those are things that we are really motivated to address prospectively.
Miles, we're seeing an enormous amount of change in technology, and a number of your businesses would be directly impacted, particularly, I'm guessing, within real estate. You are connected to some of the brightest minds in North America and internationally, particularly with Israel. What are you seeing with AI in the impact, and how do you think it's going to benefit us?
Well, a lot of what we've focused on are high-touch luxury service businesses. And I still think technology will not affect the human interaction of people who they like, admire, respect, and trust. And so there is an element of professional advice, counsel, and wisdom that will never be replaced. But AI as a tool is going to have a profound impact on society. It's going to have a profound impact on commerce. I actually think that artificial intelligence, we don't even know the impact yet. Like, I think it's going to be even more impactful than even the most positive prognosticators. I think it's going to improve efficiency and productivity. I think it's going to have unbelievable impact on medical technology. I think we will diagnose, God forbid, cancers and other things more readily. We'll have more efficient cure procedures, but also implementation of medical practicing will benefit. And I think it's going to increase productivity and GDP growth drastically over the next 2, 5, 10, 20 years, and it will accelerate. And I think all of the investments in artificial intelligence, I'm 68 years of age. I've become very close with ChatGPT. It can help me do research. I told you, there was a story that they want to write. They gave me these questions. I gave it to ChatGPT, and they gave the most remarkable answers in a nanosecond. Mm-hmm. Now, we'll customize them, but the research and what it enables you to do with such speed, we're now doing documents on using artificial intelligence. We're doing accounting and finance. We're doing deal structure, and it's just in its infinite stage. It's just in the beginning stages.
And from an investment perspective, what are you hearing? Are some of your partner companies saying to you that this is going to be an area we need to invest in and we anticipate it might look like, or still too early for that?
Well, everybody is investing and has been investing for a few years now. And we're putting our toe in the water to figure that out. In our real estate brokerage, we happen to be partners with Compass, who is the largest real estate brokerage firm in the world. And so we will be able to utilize some of their technology, because the problem with technology is the cost. And it's harder for non-multinational firms to afford that investment. I think next year in AI, they anticipate spending $1 trillion in America. Mm-hmm. $1 trillion. Mm-hmm. And so, firms have to bite off that which they can chew, which is to figure out the highest and best use of their investment. But I'm a big believer that technology will have a profound impact on the growth of the economy. And it will, one of the reasons why I invest so actively in the S&P 500 is because 30% of them are the big 7 firms, and they're the ones who are figuring it out. If anyone can figure it out, they can figure it out. And that's how you're going to get exposure to the best investments of the smartest, most informed and entrepreneurial firms in the world.
So let's go to a space where we don't always have the answers. And so what's wonderful about AI and technology that we're talking about is filling in some of those gaps. But then when we come back to the humankind, when have you been in a situation where you just don't have the answers, or some of your partners have come to you with challenges? How do you mentor or guide through that?
Well, first of all, no one has all the answers. So let's start with the fact that you have to be uncomfortable with the discomfort that you never have all the answers. Okay. I'd sooner be 80% right and be done quickly than try to get to 95% and it takes a long time. So I've always been comfortable that I was relying in large part to my own instincts. I always joke and say I'm like farmers' life insurance. I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two. We are farmers. Dun, 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 dun. So after 46 years, there's not many movies I haven't seen. And so there are patterns that you can identify in opportunity where you go, it sort of feels like, remember that in 1987 we did this? But I'm comfortable that we're going in a direction based upon instincts. We think it's a good opportunity. We think the industry's evolving. We think that our people have a skill set. We think that the scale of the opportunity will grow. But sometimes there's not empirical data to support it. You just got to go in a direction. And, what you have to do, though, is if you know you're wrong, you got to cut your loss and move on. But if you think you're right, then it's worth pursuing. And we've been very lucky that my instincts have, for the most part, been very good, not perfect. But when it took longer, we had the financial wherewithal to stay in the game, to see it through. Most people, it's called risk and reward. It's not called reward or reward. Most people have a fear of making decisions because they're afraid of being wrong. Now, I am very comfortable being wrong because I know I will be wrong. I hope I'm right 2/3 of the time. And if I am, we will be very, very successful. Jack Welch once said to me, he said, I'm the best people picker in the world. I'm right 2 out of 3 times. The average person's right 1 out of 3 times. Well, I kind of like his odds. But, even one of the greatest, CEOs in American history, he said he was right 2 out of 3 times. Therefore, he was wrong 1 out of 3 times. So you have to be comfortable with the fact that whatever you decide to do is not, there's only 2 things that result in virtual certainty, death and taxes. Mm-hmm. There is nothing else that is guaranteed. So I'm very comfortable going down a path based upon an instinct, and unless data or empirical information tells us that our assumptions are wrong, we'll keep going.
So thinking from that vein, if you were to look back in the past and something that you learned in your formative years, what in that lesson is still relevant to you today?
2 things. You don't go broke from the cost of capital, just the lack of liquidity. Learned that 35 years ago from a guy named Ian Delaney. It stays with me forever. 2, what distinguishes our career, my career, Peerage's success has been the perpetual pursuit of high octane capital and the ability to attract it. From time to time, we've had really good ideas and modest capital, and it's been a constraint for our ability to fulfill that opportunity. I think we're getting better and better at finding high octane capital in large amounts, and that will change the opportunity for us tenfold. But I've invested almost 40 years going to the States. I've been in New York for over 40 years. So I built these relationships, but I also focus a lot on relationships. So people think I'm joking when I say I have 25,358 contacts. I send a happy birthday note to every person I ever meet. Could be a stranger like Michael Dell. Mm-hmm. And people respond. I send a complimentary note if people get promoted, they acquire something, they are on TV, whatever. And I think that's a way to build a relationship with people.
Connection.
And I also try to find out where people are associated with. If I ever get a note from somebody about a charitable organization, virtually every time I respond positively. It may be a modest amount I will contribute, but I don't say, I know you well, thank you very much, I'm not contributing. That's not me. And so Tom Hanks, they asked him, what's the key to happiness? He said, there are 3 keys to happiness: kindness, kindness, and kindness. So I don't know, if I could be known as someone who is kind, I think that's the ultimate compliment. Not, he's smart, he's successful. What do those things mean? He's smart, what does that mean? Elon Musk is really smart. He's really successful. I don't know, Jeff Bezos is really successful. Like, what does that mean? He's really kind. That's a nice thing to be known for. And it's also a legacy that I hope my children will be proud of and my grandchildren will be proud of.
Thank you, Miles.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Pleasure.
Pleasure having you on Relevant.